Emma Ford is the first female to play the drum part on Hamilton, and you'll get to hear all about that experience on today's episode of The Backstage Creative. Welcome to another episode of The Backstage Creative, the podcast that focuses on the people who work behind the scenes of theater. My name is Krista Copper. A few weeks ago, I saw that Maestra, which is an organization that focuses on, promoting female musicians in theater, reposted a post that Emma Ford had posted about being the first female to play the Hamilton book. I immediately thought, oh, that's my next podcast guest. Emma is an Australian-based drummer, has done a lot of work on Broadway as a sub, and then went back to Australia during the pandemic and then subbed for Hamilton, but now Australia's lockdown. It's kind of a bit of a thing, but I'm glad that she took the time to sit down and talk. It's kind of cool to think, Hamilton is a musical that's just going to be around for a really long time, right? It's something that's just going to be classic and iconic, like a chorus line and cabaret. And it's cool to think that, Emma will be the first female to ever have played that drum book. I think that's kind of a neat thought. If you like the Backstage Creative, if you like what I'm doing over here, head on over to Facebook. There's a Backstage Creative podcast page that you can like. If you subscribe to the show on Apple or Google or wherever you listen, you won't miss an episode that way, which is helpful. It would also be helpful if you would leave a rating or a review on Apple. That helps other people find the show, and it gives me feedback, which I really appreciate. But anyway, let's get to this fabulous conversation with Emma Ford. Awesome. So you're in Australia right now. What have you been up to?
Unfortunately, we're in lockdown right now, in Sydney, because of the COVID situation, which is quite unfortunate. We handled it quite well at the beginning, but we've just recently had an outbreak, and there's not a lot of vaccines going around, so we're all stuck inside at the moment, which
Oh,
is pretty unfortunate for everyone, I think.
yeah, to have to go back. I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible, but hopefully we can get it under control.
Yeah. Do they have like a kind of an estimated time, or are they just playing it by ear?
This current lockdown's meant to end this coming Friday, so in a couple of days' time, but we think it's about to be extended even further because the cases just keep rising. So we're a
Oh,
little bit worried that we might be stuck inside for a few more weeks at this point.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had seen something about that on like scrolling through Facebook, but I don't really trust anything that I read anymore. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that that is true.
Yes, unfortunately, it is true. We are all locked down inside of our houses for weeks. Sucks.
Yikes.
Mm,
So the reason I had reached out to you is because I saw that Maestro Music had reposted a post that you had posted about being the first female drummer to play Hamilton, which is super, super awesome.
yeah.
When did you get to do that?
So I'm subbing on Hamilton here in Sydney. I've been living in New York for the last couple of years when COVID hit, I retreated back to Australia. Luckily, things were going well here for us, so we were able to still do shows. So I have started subbing on Hamilton. I think my first show was in May, some point in May, a couple of months ago, and I've luckily been in pretty regularly, which has been amazing. And to be the first female to play that part is also unreal, and I had no idea about it until maybe like a month ago. So that was a really nice surprise. Yeah, I feel very honored to be the first, but yeah, hopefully not the last.
Walking into that first rehearsal or walking into the first performance for that, did it feel overwhelming? Did you kind of think, I mean, did you try to grasp the magnitude of being a part of something like Hamilton, or did you just go in and do your job? What was going through your mind?
I think there is some sort of kind of unspoken like pressure to playing Hamilton because it is the biggest musical in the world at the moment, and everyone knows about it. Everyone's watched it on Disney Plus. It's a big deal, so people come in with such high expectations of the show. And so I was nervous to trying to live up to that standard set by Andres Ferrero, who plays it in New York, and also Gordon Rittmeister, who's the drummer here in Sydney. They're big shoes to fill, so I did feel quite nervous coming into it, but I think once I sat down and we started playing, I just kind of went into work mode and just I don't even remember the first show that I did. It was just nerves. I feel like I blacked out the whole time and was just somehow I made it to the end.
Yeah, I'm a bass player and I have definitely had those experiences where all of a sudden you've like the performance is over and you're like, "Wait, I don't remember any of that."
Yeah, how did we get here?
Yeah. Like as a drummer, I have such mad respect for drummers. Like you guys cannot hide at all. Like if
Mm,
you're like hesitant or like a little bit uncertain of like the tempo or how we're coming into a song, like there's drums, just you can't hide anywhere.
no.
Like as a bass player, I can kind of sometimes I can kind of fudge my way through things. I have so much respect for like the confidence that it takes to be a drummer.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're kind of naturally just like a confident, like everyone follow me person, or is that something that you've had to work on?
I think that's something I've had to work on, because I am very much, like I want to be a team member as opposed to a leader of any sorts. Like, especially working in musical theater, you are just a small cog in this machine, putting this story together, and everyone has to work together. There's no like one person that stands out or that is in really in control of everything. It's an absolute like group effort. When it comes to, yeah, playing in, like, a smaller ensemble or band for a concert or whatever, you definitely there definitely has to be some level of leadership and taking charge of the situation, of, the count-ins and the tempos and, like, knowing exactly where you are and what's coming up next and leading the band in whatever direction it needs to go into. And I think that took me a little while to learn how to do that. And that just, I think, just came from watching other drummers, watching live bands, other musicians, watching how they conduct themselves on stage. And I think, yeah, that was really helpful to me. But yeah, definitely a process and something I think I'm still working on. But yeah, I think I prefer to be part of a team with like a musical director as the leader, and I'm there to support and guide, but not to take charge. I prefer that kind of role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a delicate balance between like having confidence and okay, I know this is the tempo and I know that this is how it's gonna go, but then also being like flexible with like what the singer is doing or what the music
Mm,
director is telling you.
mhm.
It's like this kind of this constant second by second balancing act, I think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It is, in a way, it is very thrilling to have that opportunity, like more so in a gig environment or a concert environment where there's no like strict music or rules that you have to follow. You get to be more flexible, and anything could happen at any time. And yeah, you have to be able to react to whatever's going on around you. I think with musical theater, it's a little bit more predictable, but at the same time, it's live theater, and really anything could happen. So I guess, yeah, in a way, you also have to be prepared. I think, yeah, it is more predictable that things will most of the time go the same way every night, which is kind of nice. I like consistency.
Me too. One of the things that I think about a lot is, remembering tempos. So
Mm.
how do you, like, internalize or memorize a tempo? Do you have any process for that?
It always helps if there is already a recording or something of the song. Like, if I'm learning songs for a gig or for a show, I will just listen to that recording over and over and over and over again, and when it comes time to playing it on the night, I will always sing the song in my head before playing
Mm,
playing the tune, and most of the time, it's pretty spot on with the tempo, but yeah, I don't have that skill that some drummers have where they can just announce a tempo and they'll be able to know what it is on a metronome. I don't have that. I don't have that skill. I would like to, maybe I can practice that, but, yeah, usually I'll just sing the tune to myself in, like, the seconds you have before you start the song and just hope that it's right, I guess. It's a risk, but I think generally you'd be able to get it in the ballpark of where you need to be. I think, like, most musicians could handle that pretty well, I think.
mhm. Yeah, I've gotten into just so many, like, not like arguments, but just like I feel it's faster than it normally is, but then the saxophone player is like, "No, that was so slow tonight." And it's like,
Yeah.
why do we feel things so differently? I don't know why.
That's true. That's true. I don't know either. I think we all have it in a metronome going on. They mustn't line up. They mustn't
Yeah.
line up between each musician.
One day I'll have an answer. That's like one of my life's goal is to figure
Okay,
out
cool.
why we feel things differently.
Good. Let me know when you figure that out.
I'll get so rich off of
Yes. Yes, good. You
it.
deserve that.
I would love to hear more about your background besides just being from Australia. Where did you go to school? How did you get into music and playing drums and percussion in the first place? And how did you get to New York City? And yeah, highlights that have led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sydney. My first instrument was actually the clarinet, which is very cool. And, yeah, no, I wasn't really into the clarinet. I kind of always had a thing for drums, but, I never my parents weren't super keen on the idea of of drums and noise in the house. So I started with clarinet, and then when I reached high school, I finally convinced my parents to let me play and got my first drum kit and was just obsessed with it. And then I kind of just worked my way through school playing in the bands and jazz bands and orchestras and anything I could do. I kind of discovered that I liked jazz and I wanted to learn and play more jazz. So I went and did the jazz course at the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, which is a very, I guess, prestigious, fancy music school. But I went in there saying to my teacher basically, I like jazz and I want to learn jazz, but I don't necessarily want to be a jazz drummer on the other side of this. And I always said to him, I love musical theater and that's what I want to do with my career. I just want to learn how to be a better drummer. Like, can you teach me how to be a better drummer through learning jazz and things? And so from that moment, we kind of had a cool understanding of what my experience at that school would be. So I came out of it and it was great. I got to go on a tour with show called The Illusionists, which is like a magic illusion show that we traveled internationally and around Australia as well. And then I did a production of In the Heights here in Sydney, at the Sydney Opera House. And then I kind of just decided I'd done some traveling through New York, and when I was there in 2016, I think it was my first time, I reached out to Andreas Ferreira, who plays for Hamilton on Broadway. I just emailed him and was like, "Hey, I would love to get some lessons and meet you." And he luckily accepted, and we had a couple lessons. And from that point, I was like, "Oh, I think I need to be here. I think I need to be in New York. I think I need to be putting more time and energy into pursuing my musical theatre career." And at the time in Sydney, it was we don't have many theatres here, so there's only probably two shows on at in Sydney at one time. So the job opportunities were very low. There weren't a lot of jobs going around for me to just kind of make my way into that scene. And as it is with every scene, there's regulars, and I was a new kid on the block, and I wasn't really getting the opportunities that I wanted to have here. So I just said, well, I'm just gonna try Broadway and see if that happens. And if it doesn't, then at least I will have tried, and I can walk away from that being proud of my efforts. And so I just kind of got sorted out my visa and basically moved there. Somehow within the first 3 weeks of me being there, I had booked my first sub gig on a musical called Head Over Heels. So it was a pretty wild experience, and I don't know how I got here, but I'm definitely glad that I made the decision to relocate and just try. All I wanted to do was just try to do something on Broadway. I was like, if even if I can get just like one night, one performance in a Broadway theater in the 3 years that I was going to be there, like that's all I wanted. And it worked out much better than I anticipated, and I feel very, very grateful for all the opportunities I've been given over there. It was just amazing, and I can't wait to get back.
Was there anything like culturally interesting or kind of jarring coming from Australia and moving to New York?
I don't know. I think they're pretty similar. I did have to. There was like a couple of words or phrases that I would say, and Americans would just look at me with like a glazed look because they have no idea what I'm saying or talking about. But no, I think just general life in New York is very similar. I think although New York people seem like everyone is very driven, like everyone is going somewhere, going to work, going to do something. Like there's always people on the street, and they're always looking like they have a mission. And it's just a very, it's, I wouldn't say like tense energy, but there's definite drive there in New York, whereas people here are very relaxed and chilled. And but I don't know, because I prefer because I'm naturally just a very driven and passionate person. I much prefer that energy in New York of like, we gotta go out and get this thing and get this job and work harder and improve and make the money and do all of that. Like I'm always wanting to just be better. So I very much like that energy in New York. I don't know if you've experienced that similar thing. Maybe you're used to that, but it's yeah, it's definitely a thing. I like it.
Yeah, so I don't live in New York. I went to grad school on the East Coast and was thinking about moving to New York, but then
Mhm.
once I started visiting, I was like, this place smells terrible. There's no nature. There's no
True.
like I yeah, I didn't like
Ah.
how kind of rude just the general population
Oh,
is.
yeah. Yeah. No, I will agree with you on that one. Yes. There are some rude people
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah, yeah, I live in the Midwest and I'm like, "Why can't we just be kind to each other? Like, why is that so hard?"
I like that. That's nice.
But yeah, but I can also understand the allure of New York City and just the fast pace and the lights
Mm.
and the
Mhm.
glamour, and yeah, there is a certain energy that I think only New York City has.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. I haven't discovered it anywhere else.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like was the work that you did on Broadway, was it kind of what you had hoped that it was going to be? Was it, I don't know if that makes sense. Was it better?
Yeah.
Was it different? Did it match your expectations of, what working on Broadway was going to be like?
Yeah, it's funny because I went in with I think, like, I had such high expectations and thoughts and dreams of what it would be like and what it would feel like, to play a Broadway show, and so it was kind of like building, building, building leading up to my first show, and then I just sat down and started playing, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just playing drums. I'm just playing a show." And then it didn't actually feel I guess it felt nice and, like, it kind of just felt like home, like it was just, "This is what I do. I love theater. I love reading music. I love playing drums." It felt very natural to me, and it wasn't I kinda thought I was gonna be hit with this, like, "Wow, I'm playing on Broadway. I'm so overwhelmed, like, so much energy, and, like, I'm so amazed," but that never really came. It was just as soon as I sat down, it was like, oh, yeah, it's just doing what I normally do." It's not that much different except for the fact that I'm doing it in New York, but it is amazing. I still, like, on the walks to get to the theaters, it's always very exciting, like, to see people lining up outside waiting for their show, and I'm just walking past them being like, "You don't know what you're about to see, and you're gonna have a great time, and I'm part of this journey that you're about to go on and this experience." I get to, like, provide the music as a part of this amazing story that you're about to witness, and, like, that's a special feeling. I think I get more from just knowing that people get to go in and watch this show that I'm a part of and escape their lives for a little bit and enjoy this piece of art and music, and I think that's the bit that makes me feel more special to be like, "Oh, I'm playing on Broadway, like, this is a high caliber, a high standard of theater, and people come from all over the world to see this show or, to see this specific actor or whatever." I think that has more meaning to me than for me to actually like be sitting down and playing the show, which obviously I love, but yeah, I love that the audience get to experience this whole other world and I get to be a part of creating that for them. I think that's the special thing in it for me.
Yeah, it's very humbling, especially like as musicians, like no one really cares that we're there in the audience. And so
Yeah.
there's like this humility of, okay, like I'm going to play at like the highest caliber I can and just be on tonight. But yet the
Mhm.
audience doesn't necessarily like consciously, focus on the fact that you're there. And so I think it's a humbling experience to playing in theater as opposed to maybe like other music things.
Yeah, I agree, and like the amount of times people have asked you like after the show or whatever, and they ask you, "Oh, were you in that?" And you go, "Oh yeah, I was in the band." And they say, "Oh, there was a band?" I thought it was a recording. And we're just like, "Oh no." No, well, I mean, at least that means we've probably done a good job then if people think it's a recording. But theater isn't suited for a lot of musicians, and yeah, it is interesting and I guess, yeah, humbling seeing that there's certain people that obviously want to be on the stage and they're performers and they love to perform and be seen. But for most theater or orchestras, we're under the stage or we're in another room, and it's you don't get the same kind of recognition as you would if you were on stage or like a rock band or a pop band. People don't know who you are, people don't know what instrument you play. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm not one of those performers that are wanting to be on stage in the center stage and being noticed. I'm not really that into that, but yeah, the like you said, it is very humbling, like knowing that we're not doing this for the attention or the fame of being on stage. We're doing it for the music and the story and the piece as a whole, which is really nice, and I think it's a very special thing. But also, being on stage is cool. I'm down with that. It's nice to be on stage, but the cool thing about theater is that yeah, we don't have to be. It's more of a team effort because there's all the people working behind the scenes that they never get seen. They never get really like recognized for their work. We're all just in it together to put on this show for an audience who get to experience a beautiful story. So yeah, there definitely is something very special about just being in there to provide music for this whole production. It's not about you as an individual, it's about a team and a whole group of people. And I love that. I think that's very special.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Years and years ago, I heard someone say, the arts are a service. And at the time, I was kind of like really young, and I was like, no, they're not. Like, the music is about, the performers and about
Mhm.
what we're doing in our interpretation. But then the older I get, the more I'm like, like the purpose of arts is to serve people and to bring people
Mhm.
together and community and, communal storytelling and,
Mm.
experience something together in the same room. And the older I get, the more I think we are serving the people in the audience with our music
Yeah.
and our
Yeah,
art.
for sure.
Do you have any like pre-show routine, or how do you get yourself in the mental space to perform?
Yeah, I usually try to get to the gig or the show like an hour beforehand just to prepare. When I get there, I'll usually just put my stuff down, and usually the first half an hour of that hour is just hang time with the band and or the cast or anyone around. Like I just want to sit and chill and talk to people and like have a nice little social moment. And then as soon as it gets to about half an hour before the show, I usually will go up and start warming up. on the drums for a little bit, and then I have a full, like, stretching routine that I do before I play, and that usually takes a little while. If I'm feeling, like, particularly overwhelmed or, like, my head is a little cloudy, then I might do, like, a short meditation before the show just to try and clear my mind and, slow my heart rate down a little bit. Right before the show, I'll usually just put my sticks down and go out and hang with the band again and talk, and by that time it's go time. We're ready to play. So I think I usually will do that same routine for everything that I do, and I don't know how it became a thing, it just did. Um, it seems to work, and now I'm, like, a little bit superstitious. So I'm like, "Wait, I think I have to do this every time now." I think it's become a thing, and if I don't do it, I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, do you have one before you play as well?
I kind of have like my warm up routine, like with scales, and
Mhm.
I like to like warm up my left hand and then do some like right hand bow warm up stuff.
Nice.
I also like to stretch a little bit beforehand, just to
Mhm.
get the make sure the blood is flowing. But yeah, it's mostly just like my playing routine and then stretching.
That's cool, I like that.
Just before we hopped on, I was looking through your Instagram pictures, and I was
Mm.
admiring the epicness of some of those drum kit setups.
Oh
Um,
god, yeah.
I completely understand why you have to stretch. Like the Hamilton one was insane.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. It's massive. There are 5 snare drums, which you think, why would anyone need 5 snare drums? I don't like a snare drum's a snare drum, just play one. No, each one of those have a very specific sound and a very specific purpose. I find that very interesting, and then there's, pads and bunch of cymbals and, like, all these mallets, and there's a lot going on, and luckily, with the guy that I'm covering for, Gordo, he is probably we're about the same height, I reckon, which is handy because everything's kind of in the right position that's close enough for me to play. I played, for Tootsie the Musical, and I was covering Spencer Cohen, who is a very tall man. He has very long arms, and, all of his drums were kind of, like, spread out, so I really had to do, like, a lotta leaning over to play certain things, and it's very interesting, like, walking into all these different pits and seeing all the drum setups, and I guess as a sub you can't change anything about it, so you have to adjust your body and your seating position, and you have to kind of train your body to be able to reach to whatever you need to reach to, cymbals, percussion at certain points, and a lot of moving and kind of like choreography almost to play another drummer's setup, I guess. So that's always an interesting thing. But yeah, the Hamilton kit, there's a lot. There's a lot happening, but I love it. It's great. If I could have more drums in there, I'd be happy. Like, it's such an epic show too. Like, it's so fun to play. So I'm just stoked to be in there. Any chance I get. That's really cool.
Do you do anything like physically outside of shows to keep your body like fit and yeah, ready to reach in all these different directions?
This is the constant struggle I'm having with myself is I love sport and I love exercise, but I'm very afraid of injuring myself,
Mhm.
because literally I need all of my limbs to play drums. So I'm a big fan of soccer, and I'd love to keep playing soccer. I played it all through school. Um, I'd love to keep playing it, but I just know that I would injure myself, and I can't risk doing that. I'm forced to just kind of stick to the more low impact side of things, just walking, running, cycling, anything that isn't like a contact sport basically. Because I just have such a big fear of hurting myself because I know I'm quite competitive when it comes to sport, and I just know that I can't do anything but give 100%. Like, I will tackle people at any chance if I need to. So I just know that I wouldn't be able to control myself and stop myself from getting hurt. So I have to kind of like take a step back and be like, listen, you can't do that stuff. You stick to the boring exercise and hope that that will be enough for you. That's where I'm at the moment. I'm just walking and running. Very exciting times.
That's some good self-awareness that you have. I know some musician friends that do not have that self-awareness and like get injured, and I'm like, well, you shouldn't have been playing basketball. Like,
Yeah, 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 exactly. Do you play any sports or anything?
no, I'm a runner, and so like is a strong word. I run like ultra marathons, and so I do like pretty
Oh
long
wow.
distance stuff. I think running just helps like mental. I think it helps stamina. Like I mean, playing the
Yeah.
bass, like I'm standing most of the night when I have a
Mm.
gig, and I'm hauling these big instruments around. So I think running is really fits my needs for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I mean, I have always hated running. Like, I do not really enjoy it, but in the last year since, COVID happened and everyone's mostly been inside, but you go out for your daily walks or runs or whatever, I've found that running really helps your mental space,
Mhm.
which is something that I never thought about or realized before. And I think, yeah, like you said, it clears the mind and helps with anxiety. I've never really realized the benefits of that before, um, until this past more like 6 months, really. It's kind of like opened up my eyes to this extra, yeah, thing that I could do to help with your my mental state. So whenever I'm like nervous about a gig or a show or a decision that I have to make or a personal situation, I'll just run. I'll just go for a run and I'll come back and I'll be like, "Oh, wait, I can think more clearly now." And so I think I'm going to start trying to use that way more in regards to my professional life as well. Because, yeah, it definitely really helps. And like you said, you have to be some level of fit to play an entire show, whether you're standing or sitting. Like what we do is still very physical, and we
Mhm.
have to be able to make it through 2.5 hours, 3 hours of playing, which is a lot when you think about it. I'm becoming a fan of running, which is something that I never thought I would say, but it has its benefits, so I'm here for it.
Yeah, running took me a long time to like too. I didn't like it when I first started running either, but it just got more and more addicting, and now here I am.
Yeah. No, it's
Um,
cool. It's good.
and I think like running, I have a lot of thoughts about like running and music, but they're both like so primal and innate to humans,
Mm,
like art and movement and dance. Like humans that's what we've done for like every people group has art and some sort of
mm,
sport, and I think it's just so innate in us to move our bodies and to create that. I think, I don't know, there's something like satisfying about kind of living into that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've never kind of thought of it like that before, but that's totally right. That's a cool way to think of it. I like that. I'm gonna ponder that some more after our conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you for
Yeah, you're welcome.
that.
This is a big question, but what do you, now that you've played on Broadway and
Mhm,
I've played, in some of the biggest cities in the world,
mhm.
what are your goals for your career, for your future?
Yeah, I mean, the next step up. On Broadway so far, I have been a sub for I think like four shows at this point, and I haven't yet had my own chair, my own spot
Mm,
on a show, and so that's very much my next step is to and try and make that happen. And I think there's a possibility that it might happen next year, but we'll see.
mhm, mhm,
um, that's the next thing, kind of my next achievement that I want to cross off the list. And after that, I'm not really sure. I think I'd love to just be one of those musicians who just have multiple Broadway chairs on their resume and play a lot of shows, play with musicians that I love. Like I'd love to tour with a show. I'd love to tour with an artist. I'm also like very much into kind of R&B, hip hop, soul kind of music. So I'd love to tour with an artist that plays that kind of music. But after kind of crossing off that chair on Broadway thing off my bucket list, I don't really know. I don't really have the next thing. I'm kind of leaving it open to the universe to let me figure out what's next. But yeah, I think definitely having your own chair is a pretty big deal, and it's very hard to come by. And that's my next goal. But I would also happily sub for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm kind of open at this point to whatever and wherever my journey goes. I'm sure it will be a good one. And I'm just kind of excited more than anything to see what happens next.
mhm,
Yeah, it's
mhm.
cool.
That's a good place to be
Mm,
open.
mm, yeah, I like it.
How do you get better as either that's such a big question. How, like, either as like you can take it in terms of like musicianship, or like more practical, like as a drummer or as an artist, take that whichever direction comes to mind.
The obvious answer is, you just to improve at anything, you've gotta practice. But I think there's much more to um, being a better person and being a better musician. Putting in the time to not only like improving your skills on your instrument, but also putting in the time with your social skills and your business skills and how you handle your financial situation and how you talk to people. Are you a respectful person? Are you friendly? Are you a good coworker? Like, I feel like there's so many different things that make you a good musician, and it's not just how you play your instrument, because there are so many talented people all over the world. There will always be, competition for the jobs you want. But I think how you get better as a musician, even like as a person as well, is putting the time into your craft, but putting the time into you as a person as well. And I think it's so important to build relationships with the people around you and the people that you're going to be working with that are going to hire you. I think that is a big thing for me. I obviously want to be a better drummer and be the best I can be, but um, I realize, that stuff takes time, and you can use that time as well to improve yourself as just a human being, so that you can be the most successful musician and person that you can be. And ultimately, people are going to want to hire you if you're a good person. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, and I feel like that isn't really talked about that much. Like, I feel like people always talk about, "Oh, he's such a good player. Oh, she's so good." They never kind of talk about the importance of a person's personality and their social life and who they present to be as just a human being. And I think that we need to incorporate that into how we not judge people, but kind of recognize people for more than just their skills on their instrument.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. Especially as like musical theater players, like we have to hang out with people in really small spaces.
Yes.
And you have to be very aware of how you're presenting yourself and how you're taking up space. And I
Yeah.
think those social skills and like you said, like financial and handling your kind of the business side of who you are,
Mhm.
those are things that take a long time to learn and develop.
Yeah. Yeah. And no one wants to be, like you said, in those environments with people that are not easy to get along with, or that cause problems, or that say inappropriate things or mean things or whatever. Like, no one wants to be in that situation. And so I feel like when it comes to hiring and being hired, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be that. Well, you probably won't get called, I think, if you're that kind of person that doesn't make the environment fun to work in, and that people, start to get irritated by you. Like, I strive to always be kind and caring and friendly, and just make make everyone else around you feel comfortable, and in turn then I feel more comfortable. And yeah, I just think there is a lot to how you present yourself in a professional environment that's more than just the skills you have on your instrument, because everyone's talented. Like, everyone's so good. I think it matters more who you are as a person in that environment. And I think that will kind of determine the jobs you get and how many opportunities you get and who you know. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, I agree. This is a we're in a people business
Yeah,
for sure.
100%.
Mhm. Fantastic. So the last question I like to ask everyone is, what are you excited about right now?
What am I excited about right now? Ooh, um, well, right now, like, I'm excited to get out of lockdown in Sydney. No, I'm excited to play a show that I'm got lined up. If this COVID situation doesn't get sorted, hopefully we can be out of lockdown in a couple weeks' time, because I'm about to start rehearsals for Jagged Little Pill in Sydney. which will be very exciting because I got to play it on Broadway before the Broadway shut down. So I'm excited to play it again, and I hope that we can have audiences in and everything goes smoothly. I hope, um, yeah, we actually get to put on the show. It's looking a little bit scary at the moment with our situation, but still about a month away at this point before we start the show. So I'm kind of just using that to get me through this tough kind of period that we're in right now. Yeah, I've just been listening to a lot of Alanis Morissette, um, listening to the drums, listening to the cast album, reading through the score again, practicing, and it is very exciting. And that one, the band are on stage for different parts of the show, so that's also an exciting part. So I'm excited for that. That's the thing that I'm working towards and just hoping that it will happen given the current situation that we're in. But yeah, it's going to be a good time.
The music for the Backstage Creative was improvised and performed by Ian Leroy, and the logo was designed by Carly Wagner.